Hey everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com back again with another exciting news video. Tom has already done a news video earlier today. Check that out if you want to see all of the stuff. And also, we've also both done episodes of Graded as well. Tom for NXT and myself for AEW. Light the fuse, dynamite. But now it's time for a second news video, so without any further ado, let's take a look at those headlines. First of all, a WWE Hall of Famer has teased one more match. Next up, we have an update on the contracts offered by WWE to recent NXT call-ups. And finally, a new stipulation match is set for next week's episode of NXT. So yes, first of all, a WWE Hall of Famer has indeed teased one more match, and it's none other than Trish Stratus, everybody. Now, recently, Sasha Banks was appearing on Devon Dudley's podcast. Sasha Banks was a guest on Table Talk and revealed that she would love to wrestle Trish Stratus if there was an Evolution 2 pay-per-view, obviously on the back of the first all-women's pay-per-view in WWE history. And during an appearance on a recent edition of WWE's The Bump, Trish Stratus recognised the interest from fans in seeing that specific one-on-one match and also seemed very keen on the idea of, having to go with Sasha Banks in the ring. Stratus said, "I love and respect Sasha so much. I love her in-ring work. Would I love to taste that? Oh, talking a bit of smack there. Yes, I would. Look, here's the thing. People are buzzing about Sasha and I. We've basically had a 5-minute interaction at the Royal Rumble. That was what began the buzz, and it's been 2 years straight of people just buzzing about it and dreaming and hoping." She goes on to say, "As a wrestling fan, do I think this is intriguing? Absolutely. It's a pretty awesome idea, to be honest. That's all I've got to say about that." So Trish hasn't really given any sort of indication over whether the match will actually happen or not, and indeed it seemed like her match against Charlotte Flair was kind of the end of an era for Trish Stratus, the end of her in-ring career. But if there was any one person that I think people would love to see her return for one extra match with, it would surely be Sasha Banks. As Trish mentioned, that interaction they shared in the Royal Rumble was a great one. It got everybody really hyped. She's correctly remembered that there because obviously I couldn't before this video. I was like, who was it who Trish had the interaction with? It was Sasha Banks. They both did their poses. Trish mocked Sasha's pose and everyone went wild for it. Everybody really wanted to see that match. Unfortunately, of course, it never came to fruition. Trish ended up losing to Charlotte Flair, but it could definitely happen though. And I dare say that maybe Trish and Sasha would be, this is just personal preference, but maybe they would be a better matchup than Charlotte and Trish because, Trish and Sasha both bring a lot of the same type of cockiness to the ring, whereas obviously Charlotte's got her own brand of superiority. But I think that Trish and Sasha, if they were in a little feud together, would maybe match up a little bit more naturally. Now on to this WWE contract news. So it turns out that apparently there's something specific about the contract that WWE are offering to recent NXT call-ups. This comes courtesy of Fightful. Fightful have reported that several call-ups were recently told that they'll be discussing new deals soon, but nothing's been offered as of yet. And WWE's belief is that travel and schedule have been down since the pandemic started, and with the company already cutting back, there's no reason for new deals right now. So basically, they said they were going to offer them new deals, haven't yet, and that's largely because of things that have happened during the pandemic. They've cut down on travel and that sort of thing, so they need to work it out, I suppose. But then, Fightful have also said that apparently the money in the contracts is far below what wrestlers were being offered last year. So I understand the whole delay in contracts thing. It might not be the correct sort of time to try and secure new deals with people. However, the fact is that if these contracts towards recent NXT call-ups are going to be far lower than what they were last year, that's not great, is it? There's something in the system's broken there because you always imagine that NXT call-ups are going to get a big raise upon going to Raw or SmackDown. And if those raises or the amount that it's raised by has been significantly lowered, then something's wrong, and I think people are probably going to be unhappy about that. Especially because it comes so soon after when AEW first started and WWE were giving big contract extensions to people who stayed with them for fear that they were going to jump to AEW. It now seems to have gone totally in the opposite direction. And thinking about it, a lot of these call-ups from NXT are very, very promising indeed. A lot of the recent people called up from NXT, people such as Keith Lee, Angel Garza, Bianca Belair, all very, very promising superstars who could easily have huge singles runs of their own. In fact, it seems like Keith Lee is on the cusp of one as we speak. And Angel Garza and Bianca Belair, just the examples that I used, are also full of potential for WWE. So this is pretty sad news in a way. I think they deserve a lot more than what they are reportedly being given. But we'll have to monitor that situation as it develops and see if any more news comes out about these contracts and when they are offered. Because remember, even though it's reported that the amount is going to be far lower, they haven't actually been offered new deals yet. So when news breaks about those deals, if and when they are indeed offered to these recent NXT call-ups, then we'll report back to you with what we know. Next up, Daniel Cormier has once again been talking about a desire to move to WWE, the former UFC champion, of course, and just a really beloved figure in mixed martial arts. But not only is Cormier a big figure in the world of MMA, he's also a huge wrestling fan. And of course, remember, there was footage of him going absolutely wild in the stands at WrestleMania 31 when Seth Rollins shockingly cashed in that main event. So Cormier recently did an interview with Sports Illustrated and revealed that he has actually been in talks with WWE, saying, "We've been talking, we've spoken to some of the people over there in very, very early conversations. WWE is a company that I've watched and loved my entire life." He even talked about his idea for his first storyline, in fact. So he's thought about this quite in depth, saying, "Put me at the commentary table, let me call the matches for 6 months and tell you how great these wrestlers are in the ring. I would love that, and I wouldn't be faking it." And of course, Cormier has commentary experience as well, recently with the UFC. He says, "Then, after those 6 months, what if I'm sitting next to Michael Cole and Roman Reigns comes over and smacks the mic out of my hand? But I'm an announcer, will I hit him back? Then you're asking if this will happen or not. That's what I want, the slow build, the type of story you want to see, and your heart feels like it's going to explode when you're waiting for it. Give me that slow build, let it simmer." Now, in fairness, it is quite funny that Cormier's gone, "Right, I've got this brilliant storyline idea, put me in with Roman Reigns." Obviously, he's booked himself against the top guy there. However, you know, WWE have never been shy about thrusting MMA stars in at the highest level, of course. I mean, Ronda Rousey made her debut straight after the Royal Rumble. She also had her first WrestleMania match, or her first match even. Was it her first ever match? I think it was. Alongside Kurt Angle taking on Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Cain Velasquez came in and got put straight into a program with Brock Lesnar, for example. WWE have a track record of just thrusting MMA stars into these top-level programs with main event guys and girls. So I feel as though Cormier, even though it's quite funny that he's gone, "I've got this perfect idea, me versus the top guy," I don't think it's too unrealistic. Then again, there's no real idea of how Cormier would do in the ring. There's been rumours before of him being in talks for a commentary gig, and there's been rumours of him, of course, being in talks for an in-ring position in WWE. He's got an incredible amateur wrestling background, something that serves many, many, many wrestlers really well. So I guess he could be pretty good. He's not the youngest around, but he is, of course, an elite level athlete. So it's one of those things there where you just have to wait and see, and maybe he'd be fantastic. He's very likeable, very charismatic as well, and that can only help him. Next up, let's talk about Thunder Rosa's AEW future. She, of course, had one of the best matches of the night at All Out, taking on Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's title. Of course, Shida was successful in her defense. Thunder Rosa was unsuccessful in trying to win that title, but she is still NWA Women's Champion. In fact, that puts her in a really interesting position because, of course, she's the champion of another promotion, so she's not really... It's very uncertain whether or not she'll actually sign properly full-time with AEW. She did appear on this week's Dynamite, but she was defending her NWA Women's Championship against Ivelisse, which she did so. She retained the belt. But after that match, Thunder Rosa was starting to get beaten down by Ivelisse and her tag partner Diamante, and it was Hikaru Shida who hit the ring to save the day and then hand the NWA belt over to Thunder Rosa. And it seems like maybe a program could be continuing between the two. Maybe they'll go into a tag match against Ivelisse and Diamante. It all remains to be seen, but the big takeaway from that segment is that Thunder Rosa's story in AEW does not seem to be over. Well, she was recently, Thunder Rosa this is, interviewed by Chris Featherston of Sportskeeda and was asked about her plans going forward with AEW, and this is what she said. She said, "The working relationship is there, I'm returning. I wasn't expecting to return so quickly. Yes, I think that Billy Corgan and Tony Khan have been talking. They are very happy with my performance so far," and that's fair enough because in my view she's been absolutely fantastic. "I hope, knock on wood, it continues. It's going well for me. We're putting the NWA name on a broader platform, which is the goal at the end of the day." Now that last sentence to me makes it seem like Thunder Rosa still very much sees herself as an NWA wrestler rather than somebody potentially looking for an AEW deal. However, you have to think, is she just maybe saying that because she's towing the company line and she's doing what she should as a professional and saying, my promotion's the priority, we're going to spread the NWA name, out there and see what happens, when really, if she was offered the deal with AEW, could you see her turning it down? I'm not so certain. And finally, next week on NXT, we'll see a big new stipulation to determine the number one contender to Finn Balor's NXT Championship. It is a new stipulation in that I don't think we've seen it Certainly not in NXT before, and if we have seen it in WWE, it was probably years and years ago. But it's not totally unique. We've seen matches like this before in places like, for example, Lucha Underground. But it is billed as the first ever Gauntlet Eliminator match, and it'll take place next Wednesday on NXT. The winner will then challenge for Balor's title at TakeOver on Sunday, October 4th. The match will feature 5 wrestlers, but the participants have not yet been revealed. You can probably bank on people like Adam Cole being involved, maybe Gargano, maybe Ciampa, but you know, it's quite open. There could be various different people in there. These are the rules for the match. 2 wrestlers will start in the ring, then every 4 minutes another wrestler will enter, and the only way to be eliminated is via pinfall or submission. The last man standing will become number 1 contender to the NXT Championship and challenge Balor at TakeOver. Now, the way that I've sort of summed this up is like, it's a bit like a Royal Rumble, but without the over-the-top rope stipulation. It's pinfall or submission only. And also, of course, it's not really like the Royal Rumble, despite following largely the same format, because, you know, there's far less participants, and also, as well, the gaps between entrants are 4 minutes rather than like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. Also next week, we're going to find out who the number 1 contender for the women's title is for Io Shirai's NXT Women's Championship. It's going to be a number 1 contenders battle royal, and we don't again know all of the competitors, but on the match graphic, it had the following wrestlers. So I'll just list these off now. Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, Shotzi Blackheart, Aaliyah, Kaden Carter, Indy Hartwell, Xia Li, and Casey Catanzaro. And with that, that is the end of this news video. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, as always, stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.